We're just going to let people settle in for a few seconds, but thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope everyone is having a great week so far. And just as we're kind of settling in and getting situated, I do have a question for the audience. So my question is, do you currently use Stock Investor Pro? And then if not, do you use a fundamental stock screening tool? And we'd love to hear which ones. And you can use the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel to answer. And then feel free to let us know, where you're tuning in from, how the weather is, how you're feeling. And Wayne, I wanted to ask you as well. So how do you use Stock Investor Pro for your own stock research?
Well, I mean, obviously, as program manager, I use Stock Investor extensively, and I use it to manage different portfolios with the association. But I still also use Stock Investor for my own stock investing. I have a couple of stock screens that are my favorites, and so I use those to run screens to identify specific opportunities, and then use the database itself to assess the quality, look at trends in financials, valuations, growth rates, etc. So yeah, I use it extensively here at the association for my work, but I also do use the program in my own personal investing.
Oh, fantastic. And it looks like everybody's about settled in. So yeah, keep sending in those questions or using that questions section to send in your responses. We'd love to hear them. And I'll try to respond to as many as possible once I kind of wrap up our intro. But we're going to get started just because I know everybody's, we appreciate everybody's time. And so I just want to also first off, welcome everyone to this afternoon's webinar, The Secrets of Smart Screening, Master Stock Investor Pro, led by Wayne Thorp. And then again, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you all here. And my name is Jennifer Shear, and I'll be your host for today. Our last Stock Investor Pro webinar was back in 2022, and we wanted to take this opportunity to really highlight some of those enhancements we've made over the last few years. And as a thank you for attending today's event, we do have a special offer for all attendees on Stock Investor Pro, so please stay tuned after our presentation. And but before we begin, I do have a few things to go over. So I want to remind all of our webinar viewers that AAII is a nonprofit educational group and is not a financial advisor, and thus is not able to give personal advice. Every investor is different. That's why our goal with each broadcast and article is to educate you on how to make better financial decisions. And so please keep an eye out on your chat section throughout the webinar. I'll be posting helpful resources, key information, and of course, our special offer that I just mentioned. And if you have any questions for our speaker during the presentation, you can submit them using the question section of your GoToWebinar control panel, which you're kind of using already and getting used to by answering our initial question. And then once our presentation concludes, I will select a few for Wayne to answer. And then if your question isn't selected during the broadcast, feel free to email Wayne at aai.com, and I'll put that in the chat later this afternoon. And then a handout of the presentation slides is available under the handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel, which is located on the right-hand side of your screen. And then it'll also be emailed to all who attended today. And then if you experience any issues with the audio or the video of the webinar, you can consult the GoToWebinar website for support at gotowebinar.com. And then just a friendly reminder that this presentation is recorded and a replay of the webinar will be sent to all who attended today. And then, like I mentioned, the PDF and the recording will also be accessible at aai.com/webinars. And I'll throw that in the chat later as well. And then for new viewers, we always like to give a little bit of background about our organization. The American Association of Individual Investors is an independent nonprofit corporation formed in 1978 for the purpose of assisting individuals in becoming effective managers of their own assets through programs of education, information, and research. And in this presentation, Wayne will cover just a few things. So the power of Stock Investor Pro as a screening engine and research database, the data changes we've recently made to the program, and then the advanced screening and analysis features of Stock Investor Pro. And so with that, I'd like to hand over the presentation to Wayne.
Thank you very much, Jenna, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you happen to be on the West Coast. It's great to be here with you today to talk about something that can truly transform the way you invest, smart stock screening using Stock Investor Pro. I'm Wayne Thorp, and I'm the head of the research analysis team here at AAII. And part of my job is to help investors like you make better data-driven decisions in the stock market. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started with stock screening, today's session will give you the tools to improve your strategy and uncover high-quality stocks with confidence. Now, one of my many roles here at the association is Stock Investor Pro Program Manager. April 1st will mark my 28th anniversary with AAII, and I've been using Stock Investor Pro since day one. I've come to love and appreciate the many benefits of stock screening and Stock Investor Pro's true power and flexibility. So without further ado, let's dive in and get started. But first, I just want to run through what we're going to be covering today. First off, what is Stock Investor Pro and why it stands out? The data behind Stock Investor and how it ensures accuracy. How you can navigate the software for efficient stock analysis. Running both predefined and custom stock screens. Generating reports and exporting data for deeper analysis. Now, I've given day-long Stock Investor Pro seminars, so in theory, some people say I could talk forever anyway, but there's definitely a lot about this program I could talk about. But unfortunately, we only have about 45 minutes today, so I'm going to be giving you a very high-level overview of the program. Now, Jenna will be monitoring monitoring questions as I go along, and she may drop in from time to time if there's a question regarding something I'm covering right then and there. But don't worry, I will be taking questions at the end. And as Jenna alluded to, if any questions come to mind afterwards, or we don't get to your question, you can always reach out to me at Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, at AAII.com. So does that sound good? Well, then let's go. But first things first, what exactly is Stock Investor Pro? Well, simply put, Stock Investor Pro is AAII's powerful Windows-based stock screening and research database software. Unlike free online screeners, Stock Investor Pro gives you full control over screening and ranking stocks, comprehensive data on over 6,700 US listed stocks, daily updates sourced from S&P Global Market Intelligence, predefined screens based on legendary investment strategies, and portfolio tracking, customizable reports, and much more. In my opinion, Stock Investor is an indispensable tool for investors who want to go beyond surface level analysis and truly customize their investment approach. Now let's get into the details of Stock Investor Pro and some of the things you should know. First off, it's a Windows-based software. It's not a mobile app. It is not Mac compatible, but Mac users can run it using emulation software like Parallels or Boot Camp. Stock Investor's database has roughly 6,700 stocks only, not ETFs, and it covers the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE Amex, NASDAQ, and OTC listings, as well as over 1,400 ADRs. Now, for a US listed stock to be in the database, it must meet minimum filing, trading, and liquidity requirements to ensure that you're always working with quality data. And lastly, the data is updated daily, so you always have the latest information to work with. So with that foundation, let's move into the power of the data itself. The data in Stock Investor Pro is deep and comprehensive. Depending on the company, there could be as many as 2,000 plus data points in the program. And here's an overview of some of the data you get. First off, there's financial statement data, over the last 7 years of annual data and the last 8 quarters of quarterly data. Valuation ratios and multiples, so PEs, margins, etc., both for the company as well as medians across sectors and industries. You also get historical averages, so you can compare where things are now versus 3, 5, and 7-year averages. Growth rates for a number of financial statement items over the trailing 12 months, last fiscal year, and last 3, 5, and 7 years, as well as earnings estimates, which are for future projections for the current and next 2 fiscal years and current and next fiscal years, as well as upward and downward estimate revisions for each of those elements. So all of this data, it means you can analyze a stock from every possible angle, past, present, and future. And while we're on the topic of financial statement data, let's discuss something crucial, the difference between as reported and normalized data. Now, last fall, we transitioned from LSEG to S&P Global as our primary fundamental data provider. LSEG data was as reported, while S&P's is normalized. And here are the primary differences between these two types of data. As reported data, as its name may indicate, means that this data comes directly from companies' filings as they've reported them. So these are 10Ks, 10Q reports, etc. On the other hand, normalized data takes the filing data that appears in these financial reports and adjusts it to remove one-time items as well as to standardize accounting assumptions for better comparability. So why does this matter? Well, because companies differ based on the accounting methods and assumptions that they make. One company may report a large one-time expense, while another may defer it and list it as a liability, recognizing portions of it as an expense each year. So normalized data smooths these inconsistencies so you can compare apples to apples. Probably not a big deal. It was probably more so of a deal if you were a user of the program as we transition from LSEG to S&P. But it's all, I always tell people you need to understand the data you're looking at. So again, the data in Stock Investor comes from S&P Global Market Intelligence, and this data is normalized or standardized to, again, eliminate some of the assumptions and discrepancies you might see how companies handle certain items on their financial statements. With Stock Investor Pro, you can focus your analysis on stocks that meet your basic financial requirements. The program offers 50 predefined stock screens. Or, if you are more of a do-it-yourselfer, you can create your own screens using any of the data points in the program, or even create your own variables for screening. While Stock Investor is a fundamental stock screening program at its heart, it's also a robust stock research database with some of the deepest collections of fundamental ratios, multiples, financial statement data, and earnings estimate data you will find anywhere. To my knowledge, I've yet to run across a website that offers this amount of data per company at the price. In addition, there's sector and industry median data from S&P GICS, analyst estimates data, company reports, and much more. Now, I've been doing this for 28 years, met many, many investors over my career. And one of the biggest challenges investors face is information overload. With thousands of stocks to choose from and countless data points available, it can be overwhelming to figure out where to start and how to efficiently analyze stocks. That's where Stock Investor Pro comes in. Here's how it makes your investment process more efficient and disciplined. First, it organizes your stock analysis process. You can analyze companies quickly and systematically using Stock Investor Pro. It also displays screening results in a customizable way. You can use the predefined data sets or select any of the financial metrics in the program that matter most to you. You can print out reports for deeper research. Whether it's a single company summary, a multi-page comprehensive report, or a custom data report, you can generate the exact information you need to make informed investment decisions. You can also export data for further analysis. You can pull information for the entire stock database from a specific screen or from your portfolio and export it directly into Excel or any other third-party tool. And lastly, you can create stock tracking lists. We call them portfolios, helping you monitor stocks over time and make informed decisions based on trends and new data. Over my nearly 30-year career, I've seen firsthand how following a structured screening methodology can dramatically improve an investor's discipline and decision-making process. When you approach investing with a well-defined strategy rather than making impulse-driven trades, you significantly increase your chances of long-term success. Now, if you are new to Stock Investor or you're thinking about subscribing, it's important to realize that this is arguably some of the most complex and robust investment software out there. Many first-time users find themselves overwhelmed by the volume of data that's presented to them, and they don't take the time to learn what a powerful and useful investment tool Stock Investor really is. To be brutally honest, you have to be prepared to take the time to learn the program and the features that it offers to make the most of your subscription. Now, over the years, I've spent a lot of time and effort to create as comprehensive a collection of user resources as possible to allow people to familiarize themselves with the program. So be sure to take advantage of those resources, which I'll touch on a little bit later. Like any tool, the more you use it, the more time you take to learn it, the more useful you will find it. Now, and I always cross my fingers, I'm going to switch over to Stock Investor Pro and give you a live guided tour of the program and its key functions. Okay, so here on your screen is Stock Investor Pro. And again, this is a Windows-based program you can download from our website and install. But when you first open the program, by default, it opens to Stock Notebook number 1 Untitled. A stock notebook, which I'll touch a little bit later, is ultimately a template that contains a portfolio, a screen, a view, and a rank order. But by default, when you first open the program, it loads the entire universe of stocks. At this point, as of Friday, there were 6,697 stocks in the program. No portfolio or screens are loaded with the default notebook. The standard view is loaded, and the database is ranked in ascending order, so A to Z, by company name. The notebook consists of 11 different tabs. Oh, and of course, as always, it decides to misbehave. So we're just going to close this out. The program, the stock notebook itself, consists of 11 different tabs. Basically, it narrows in on a specific sector or segment of data. So you have multiples, growth rates, ratios, valuations, etc. But then you also see on the stock notebook, you have this one particular company that's highlighted in yellow. And the company that's highlighted in yellow is the quote unquote active company in the stock notebook. So whatever company is highlighted in yellow, as you start clicking through these different tabs of the stock notebook, it's going to be that company's data that you're going to be viewing. Also, you can see, so yes, we can see the number of companies and how it's ranked. And so let's take a little bit deeper dive then into looking at some of the different elements of the stock notebook. In this case, we open the program and 1-800-Flowers.com is the first company in the database based on its rank order of company name ascending. But let's say you want to find a specific company. Well, you have a couple of ways to do that, both of which it's the find company function. You have a ticker search at the top of the program toolbar. Then this is where you could enter in a ticker for any company. But you also have these binoculars. And if you hover over it, it says here, finds a company in the current notebook. So let's go ahead and just open that. And this brings you to the find stock issue window. Here you can search by either ticker or company name. But let's go ahead and just enter in a ticker. Let's do Costco. So as you enter in a ticker, it starts sorting through. So we've typed in the ticker for cost, and it shows us that that's Costco Wholesale Corporation. So I'll go ahead and say, okay. So now that we've done a find company function, Costco Wholesale Corporation is now the active company of the stock notebook. So then when we start clicking through these individual tabs, again, it's the data that we view is for Costco Wholesale Corporation. Now, coming back to the stock notebook, you can also, let's say, I want to find those companies that have the lowest PE amongst all companies. Well, there's a way you can do that is you can actually rank the stock notebook within the notebook. You can do that by finding a data field that's already loaded with the standard view. In this case, the PE ratio. So all I had to do is just scroll over a little bit. There's probably about 200 or so data points in the standard view. So it could be a little overwhelming, but I'll be talking a little bit later about how you can use views to narrow down the data that you're viewing. We're going to come back to PE and we're going to hover in that column and we're going to right click And here, by right-clicking on any of the data headings in the stock notebook, you have the ability to rank on that field on either ascending or descending order. So we're going to rank the entire universe based on the PE ratio in lowest order, so that's smallest to largest. So we can see here that Orion has the lowest PE. But let's see, would be the least bit surprised. Yes, it has negative earnings. So let's see what we're going to see. Let's go back and see what our highest PE is. Let's change this around. There we go. So Orla Mining Limited. It's a New York NYSE Amex stock with a PE of 994.3. So for those of you out there, that probably maybe a little pricey for a lot of people, but again, with the program, you can rank the overall universe of stocks, and I'll be touching on it later. But again, the stock notebook can either be the entire universe, the results of a stock screen, a loaded portfolio. So there's different ways in which you can be displaying a set of companies using the stock notebook. So as I mentioned, there's probably 200 or so data points in this standard view. And for a lot of people, I know for myself, there's probably maybe about 15 or 20 data variables that I really key in on when I'm looking at a particular stock. Everyone is different. You might be looking at more, or even if it is 15 or 20 data elements, what I view as important when I'm analyzing a stock or evaluating a stock could be very different from what you think is important. So in way in which you can use Stock Investor to narrow down the data that you're actually viewing for the program is using a data view. And I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but if a company has a full collection of history in the program, there could be over 2,000 data points for an individual company. So for most people, they probably definitely want to find a way to narrow down the data they're viewing. And you can do that with view reports. A data view is strictly a collection of data points. There's nothing magical about it. In the program, you have a number of predefined data views. These are typically data sectors or data categories. So, if you want to view ratios, so you go ahead and load the ratios view. You notice it didn't change. Just for you viewing at home, I actually have Stock Investor blown up just so it's easier to view on a computer screen for the people at home. But as I start scrolling to the left, it starts showing a collection of ratios for all of the companies that are in the stock notebook. So you can see here that Orla Mining, for its gross margin over the trailing 12 months is 74.1. And you can see how you can track this over time. It's also worth pointing out, when you're talking about some of the different terms that we use with Stock Investor, you'll hear things like data view, screen, notebook, template. There's a lot of terms, and sometimes these terms can be confusing. And over my years of using Stock Investor and giving presentations on Stock Investor, I have found that people sometimes get confused between a view and a screen. And the easiest way to think about it is a view is just a collection of data points, whereas the screen is the actual set of filters that you apply to the database to narrow it down to find the stocks that meet those specific set of investment criteria. Now, this pull-down menu, in this case, anything with an asterisk across the program, whether it's a screen or a view, anything that starts with an asterisk means it's predefined, it comes in the program. But as you get more comfortable with the program and start using some of the custom features of it, and you start creating your own screens and views, anything that's been saved in the program, whether it's predefined or custom, will appear in this listing. Now, if you want to go ahead and create your own view, you do that using the view editor. And the view editor is where you go in and just specify the data fields that you want to display in your particular data view. So again, I might have a particular set of variables that I want to view. You might have something different, but you use the view editor to go ahead and build your particular views. One thing to keep in mind though, when you are using creating a data view, is that you will want to make sure that you add company name and or ticker to any view. If you, by default, those two particular pieces of information do not appear in a view. So you want to make sure that you put identifying qualities such as the company name or ticker into your view. Otherwise, when you load it, you're just going to see a bunch of data, but you won't know until you start clicking on the individual data tabs what company you might be looking at. But in this case, all of the editors use what's called a field picker, which is all of the data points broken down by specific data categories. And then you click the plus sign in the field picker, and it'll expand out and show you all of the different data points that make up that particular data category. So let's just do some quick. So we have company name and ticker. Let's do create PE, do yield, and let's see, let's do relative strength. Let's do it really quick. Let's do a price over percentage of 52-week high. So we have a few data points here. Go with save as. Go ahead and save it. So close out of the view editor. So now again, whenever you save a view, you can come back to the view edit, the view drop-down menu. And we can see here then we have our test view that we've created. So you have just the data points that you want to view. Again, you can rank as well. So that's how you can manipulate all the different data points that are in the program to narrow it down to those elements that mean the most to you. Also, one feature that I was very happy that we added is you start using the program, especially if you start creating your own stock screens, is you create a stock screen, might have 5 or 6 variables in it. Logic would hold that you want to then be looking at those individual data points that were part of your screen to evaluate the company. Well, we added a feature several years ago that when you go to the screen editor, which is where you can run as well as edit different the screens in the program, as you create a stock screen, in this case, I'm just going to load a predefined one. But let's say and I'll be talking about how to create screens in just a little bit, but you create a stock screen, so you have all of your filters here. A nice feature that is in there is you can use the make view button that's in the screen editor. And clicking that, it takes all of the data points that make up your screen and it populates that view for you. So you don't have to be hunting and pecking, spending time creating that view. It'll take all of the data elements that make up that particular screen and populate your view for you. So let's go ahead and save this. So again, I find this is a very useful time-saving function in the program. Now, another way in which you can be using views is by printing reports. And there's a couple different ways that you can use views in printing reports. And if you want to print a report in Stock Investor, you can click on the printer icon from the toolbar, or you can go to File and Print. In either instance, it'll open the available reports window in the program. And we want to focus right now on 2 elements that use the views. You have a view report as well as statistical summary reports. Now, a view report is where all that does is take either an individual company or all of the companies that are in the stock notebook. Again, that's either the entire stock universe the results of a screen or the tickers that make up a particular portfolio that you've loaded. So you can create a view based on individual or the contents of the stock notebook. So let's say, for example, we just want to do a view report. Let's go back to our standby. Let's pull up Costco again. Let's say I just want to create a view report for Costco. So Costco is our active company. We can also, so we can see that because it's in yellow. So we select view report, select company. In this case, I'm just going to preview. You can either preview the report or print it. And so you select the view that you want to view upon. So I want to use the NEF view that I just created that pulled it from the screen editor. And then I also want to do across by issue. So that means when you're looking at your report, your tickers will be across the top and the data points that make up the view will be on the vertical axis. So now here we have then for Costco Wholesale Corporation, because again, we created a view report for the active company. And here are all of the data points that are contained in our NEF view for easy viewing. Now, the other thing that people use a lot for Stock Investor is, you have your research database, you have your screening functionality, but inevitably, you might be using some other tool, as simple as a Excel spreadsheet to do some further data manipulation, further data analysis. And so you can use views to copy data from the program and plop that into Excel or some other, even just a Word doc if you wanted to. So what you do here is, let's go ahead and close out of our view reports, is let's say we want to export our NEF view, and let's go ahead and just, let's export the NEF view data for the NEF screen. John Neff, if you might not have picked up on, is one of my favorite all-time investors. I find his strategy very straightforward, as well as, it's done very well over the close to 30 years that I've been in the association. So we're going to go ahead and run the NEF screen, which is a predefined screen in the software. I've loaded the NEF view that we created previously. And so after running the NEF screen, we see that we have 24 companies that are now making up the stock notebook instead of the entire universe of companies. Now, the NEF screen, if you're familiar with it, its cornerstone is the dividend adjusted PEG ratio. So I'm actually going to sort the universe in ascending order by the dividend adjusted PEG ratio. So we have the companies that passing our screen, the view, the NEF view that we've loaded, as well as rank this in ascending order by dividend adjusted PEG. So now I want to take this data and take it out and paste it into Excel to do some additional analysis. All you need to do is right click anywhere in the stock notebook and go to copy notebook to clipboard. And depending on the number of data points and the size of the universe you're trying to copy, it might take a few moments. That was relatively instantaneous. And then we're going to go to Excel. And do a simple paste. And so there's the data that we took from Stock Investor. You've got all of the companies across the top. You have the data headers of the fields that were exported, as well as the raw data itself. And so from here, then you can be doing additional sorting, multi-level sorting, any type of data manipulation, things like that. So here's another way that you can use data views within Stock Investor, in this case, to export data from the software. So now I want to touch on a couple of the other different types of reports that are in Stock Investor. Stock Investor offers several reporting options. from single company summaries to customizable comprehensive reports, statistical summaries, and sector and industry median reports. So we have a lot of different reports to use within Stock Investor Pro. So going back to, if you want to actually print a report, you can use the print icon from the toolbar. So now here, previously we just talked about view reports, but here you can see all of the different reports that are in Stock Investor Pro. You have company summary reports, comprehensive company reports, view reports, statistical summary reports, as well as industry median reports. So we're just going to do a quick run through of the different reports that are in Stock Investor. So we're going to go back to Costco. I've been using my membership a lot lately, so I guess it's on my mind. But in this case, so Costco is our active company, and I just want to create a company summary report for Costco. Now, company summary reports are just really simple one-page summary reports. So we're going to select company summary, selected company, and click preview. And so here is the view, the company summary report for Costco. So it gives you just a very top level overview of the company. So it just gives you a good idea of some of the important elements of the program. So you have, very comprehensive summary. Summary data regarding the company. PE, earnings per share, PEG ratios. Important stock elements such as its last split date, as well as what the split factor was. Gives you an overview of the company itself. And then it offers select price performance information, selected growth rates over the trailing 12 months, 3 years, and 5 years. A pretty good overview of estimate data. So for the current quarter, the next fiscal quarter, the current fiscal year, next fiscal year, the high and low, the average estimate, the high and low estimates, standard deviation, the number of analysts tracking the company, as well as the number of upward and downward revisions over the last month. You then have quarterly EPS and sales data, and then you have selected annual financial statement data, multiples and ratios over a trailing 12-month or latest quarter, depending on whether or not it's a cash flow or income statement or balance sheet items, as well as for the last 5 fiscal years. So again, very easy way to get a very quick snapshot of the company. Now, it is worth pointing out that you do have the option, if you wanted to print a company summary on all companies in the active notebook. Now, be aware, if you try to do that for the entire universe, in this case, again, almost 7,000 companies, don't be surprised if you hear the shrieks of the trees, because that's going to be close to 7,000 pages. So just be a little aware when you start clicking, what universe you're actually printing upon. Now, if you want to go beyond just a simple one-page report in Stock Investor, we also have our comprehensive company reports. Now, these are customizable reports that give you the flexibility to select the data you want to see. So these are very useful. Again, they're fully customizable. So in this case, we're going to select comprehensive company report for the selected company. Again, it's going to be Costco. I'm going to click preview. So here you can go through and actually specify the specific data that's going to appear in this comprehensive report. So I always use description, just so you know which company you're analyzing. Let's select valuations, multiples, growth rates. I actually pay closer attention to year-over-year percentage change for quarterly data. So I'm just going to put the percentage change, as well as the percentage change on an annual basis, as well as common sized. If you want, you could select all of them if you want, completely up to you. I'm just showing that you can, if you want to, just be very selective in the data points that you select. So once you have selected all the different data categories you want to include in your report, you go ahead and click OK. And of course, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, it's being a little cranky today, I guess. So I do apologize, but again, you can go through and specify the exact companies, the exact data categories you want to appear in that report. Okay. Now, the last, another report that's in the program are statistical summary reports. And these are reports that calculate summary statistics for a collection of data points based on a specific set of companies. This is again where you can use a view. So you select the view with the desired data points that you want to use to generate the report. And then you again are specifying the active universe. That could either be, it could be the entire universe, the results of a stock screen, or a stock view. So we're going to go ahead and create a statistical summary report for the entire database. We'll go ahead and preview that. You once again are asked to specify which data view you want to use. So we're going to just use our trusty rusty NEF view here. And so what this report did was for the entire universe of companies, it looks at all of the data points that are in that predefined, that custom NEF view that we created, and generates median, average values, again, for the companies that were being analyzed, the standard deviation, as well as the high and the low. So in this case, you also have what's called the sample column. And all this is references are the number of companies that the program looked at that actually had valid values for those individual data points. So we can see here, one of the data points was the estimated growth rate of earnings over the next 3 to 5 years. But there's only 1,984 companies in this entire universe where analysts have actually given a 3 to 5 year estimate for growth. So that's where you see such a low number here. Depending on the variable, you'll see almost all of the companies in the universe. So there's 6,300 roughly that have a free cash flow per share value over the trailing 12 months. 5,988 that have a valid non-null operating margin over the last 12 months. But this, if you're interested in getting a gauge, especially if you're looking at like valuation, actually give you a quick example. Let's say you're interested in seeing what the valuation of the S&P 500 is. So let's just do let's go back to we're going to do a statistical summary report. No, I want to run the screen first. So the first thing I'm going to do is you can run, I'm going to run a screen for the companies in the S&P 500 index. That's going to become our active set of companies. So currently there's 503. That's mainly because of duplicate tickers such as Berkshire A and B, probably primarily. So we've run this screen. So we can see down here in the corner, we've gone from 6,997, I think, were the companies, all the companies that are in the active notebook, active universe. So now we're down to 503. So now that is the number of companies that are part of our active stocks notebook. We're going to go back to print. We're going to do a statistical summary report for the active notebook. So again, it'll be for these 503 companies. And then I'm going to select the multiples view, which contain all of the different price multiples. You get this warning. This is kind of a legacy warning. And when I first started using the program with processing power as it was back then, this particular statistical summary report could have taken several minutes, but that's no longer an issue. But it's sort of legacy warning there. So we're going to go ahead and say yes. And as you can see, things ran very quickly. So now here is our statistical summary report for the companies that make up the S&P 500. And so we can see that as of, I think this was through last Friday's close, the median PE of the stock universe of the companies, of the S&P 500 companies was 25.43. So you can pull this up. I use this again to give you a quick and dirty guide of as far as how the market is valued. Track this information over time. But you can use any data view using any universe of companies, the entire universe of stocks, the results of a stock screen, a portfolio, etc. And then lastly, you have industry median reports. And so as these, the name might suggest, you're able to select a specific sector industry based on S&P GICS data. And so in this case, let's go ahead, do an industry. It's biotech. So you select your specific sector industry, again, in this case, biotech. Now this report, aren't able to specify the data points. This is kind of a predefined report. All you're doing is specifying the sector or the industry. So in this case, we have our biotech industry. And so this looks at all of the companies that have been designated in the biotech industry by S&P GICS. And again, it gives you the select information, multiples, growth rates, some estimate data, variety of ratios. So just how you interpret this data. So as of Friday's close, the median gross profit margin for all of the constituents of the biotech industry was 59.5. And then you can see how that has tracked over time. So the gross profit margin for biotech companies as a whole has increased pretty significantly over the last several years. So this report, again, you can't customize. All you do is specify the sector or the industry, and then the report will generate the median values of the data points that make up this view. So now I want to get to kind of the meat of Stock Investor Pro, and that is its screening capabilities. Again, with Stock Investor Pro, you have 50 predefined stock screens. These are built on using very popular and successful investment factors, as well as based on the strategies used by some of history's most famous and successful professional money managers and academics. So if you come to the program and you just want to run a screen, I think I've showed you this previously, but to access all of the predefined, or if you happen to start saving them, all of the screens in Stock Investor, you click on the screen pull-down menu. Again, anything that starts with an asterisk is predefined in the program. So let's pick a different one. Let's see, is anything passing your Neil screen these days? No, too restrictive at the moment. So let's do Marty Zweig, another stock screen that I created. So as of Friday's close, we have 5 companies that meet the criteria of the Marty Zweig screen. Now, if you wanted to see what these criteria were, you can go back to the screen editor. And so this is not a black box system. The program AAII, we're all about education. So, we want to teach people how to create these stock screens. So we certainly don't want to make this a black box system where you don't know exactly how we're running our screens. So these are all the criteria that make up the Marty Zweig screen. John Baikovsky, the president of the association, kids me that he can always tell a stock screen that I've created because it either has and or it has as long as this one. I'm very meticulous in my stock screening creation, I guess. But again, you can use the screen editor to view the criteria of a particular stock screen. And if you wanted to, you could actually edit the screen. You would have to save it under a different screening name, but you could edit it as well. So you have that level of flexibility. Now, let's say you wanted to create your own stock screen. So we're going to do that now. So you go back to the screen editor. and you do this. I don't think I actually showed this earlier, and I apologize. So you have, again, on the toolbar, you have this little filter that we use to indicate the screen editor, or you also have the tools screen editor menu to choose from. And this brings up the screen editor. And this is where you can go ahead and enter in the criteria that make up the screen that you want to run. So in this instance, we're going to just create a very quick screen, mainly to show you one issue that people might run into is, how do I know what individual data point makes up a data category? I've been using this program for 28 years. I'm a little embarrassed to say that actually I've had a couple dreams about Stock Investor over my life. I've used it that much. But one question that is probably the most common amongst new users is, what particular data category is an individual data field in? And the way in which you can do that is, let's see, I'm not sure if I can. Fortunately, say we're going to stop this. No, I lost it. Where's it? Get everything situated, and then it disappeared on me. Do apologize for this, folks. Let's see here. What I'm trying to do is open up the Stock Investor Help system, which, depending on the system you're on, sometimes it opens. So what I'm trying to explain is, how do you know what data category a particular data point is in? So in this case, I want to screen for stocks that have a PE of less than 20. It's an arbitrary number, but I just want to mimic that particular type of screen. So what I want to find out is, I need to know which data category PE is in. And you can do that by opening the Stock Investor Pro Help system and go to Field Definitions. And let's go to Alphabetical. And we're going to select PE. So here we see that the data category for PE is multiples. And again, this is probably the thing that takes the longest to learn as Stock Investor. And some of the reasons why some people get frustrated creating stock screens is having to know what data category a particular data field is in. But now that we know that PE is in multiples, we can come back to the screen editor in our field picker and go to multiples. And we'll select PE. So you double click on the data point that you want to add. So field is the data element that you're actually running the screen against. Operator, this will change depending on potentially the field that you're using. So in this case, I want to be looking for PEs that are no more than 20. So I'm going to select the less than or equal to. Now the factor column, and this is another element that trips up people sometimes. Whatever is in the factor column is what gets multiplied by the compare to. We'll get back to this in a minute. Vast majority of time, you're going to leave the factor column blank, but some people will try to put the value which should go in the compare to cell in the factor cell, and that creates things. So let's say I mistakenly put, even though I'm trying to find a PE less than 20, I put 20 in the factor cell. So I think I'm done. The problem is the apply button is grayed out. Almost every time someone reaches out to me and say, I'm trying to run a screen, the apply button is grayed out. It's because they've put what the value that should have gone in the compare to cell in the factor cell. We're going to remove that from the factor. Now, the first time you click in the compare to, it's going to give you the field picker, because you could compare this against, if I want a PE that's less than the industry median, I want a PE less than the universal average, etc. So you can choose if you want to. You can run filters using you can run screens that use data fields versus data fields. Or if you click in again, you get your flashing ticker, and I'm going to type in 20. So now we have PE less than or equal to 20. And after I enter that in, now we can see that the apply button is no longer grayed out. That indicates that this is a valid screen. And so as of Friday's close, there's 1,523 companies that have a PE of less than or equal to 20. But let's quickly show how you can use the factor element. Let's say I want to find companies that have a PE that is no more than 3/4 that of its industry PE. So in effect, I'm trying to find companies who are potentially undervalued relative to their industry counterparts. So in this instance, whatever the industry median is, the PE has to be no more than 75% of that. So you're multiplying 0.75 by whatever the industry PE is. So that's how you use the factor column. So now using this particular filter, we have 930 companies in the universe that have a PE that's no more than 3/4 that of the industry median PE. So that is how you can go about using the the factor element to it. So we are getting very quick on, as I was afraid, we're running out of time quickly, but I also want to touch on one element that I really think makes Stock Investor somewhat unique, especially compared to some of the other programs and software or websites that are out there. And that is the multi-screen selector. So when you first start with Stock Investor, you have 50 predefined stock screens. And with the multi-screen selector, you can identify stocks that potentially meet the criteria of multiple screens. Now, if you extend the number of the number of screens that you select to run this multi-screen selector, you're exponentially diminishing the chances of a company meeting all of these different criteria. Well, let's go back to my old standby, the NEF screen, and let's see if any meet our estimate revisions up screen. And we're going to go ahead and apply that. Nope, so we have no companies passing. So let's see, let's do free cash flow as an element. I think that we might get some here. Yes, so with the multi-screen selector, what you do is you select the multiple screens that you want to run, and it will then run all of these, however many screens that you've select. It'll look at all the companies that pass these individual screens, and then it'll look for any overlap. So in this instance, I selected the John Neff screen and our free cash flow screen. 24 companies passed the Neff screen, 295 passed the free cash flow screen. When I applied these, 4 companies meet the criteria of both. So we have Maximus, Griffin Corp, Gibraltar Industries, and Leidos Holdings. So, a unique feature, again, if you want to run multiple screens, you can use this in order to allow you to do it. But again, you select too many screens, the chances of having any companies pass multiple screens will decline significantly. And then one other element that you can use with the multi-screen selector is the crosstab. What the crosstab does is it allows you to say, okay, I'm going to select a number of screens that are in the program, either predefined or custom, and I want to find the number of companies that pass any 5 of those stock screens. Doesn't matter which 5, but I want to find all of the tickers in the universe that pass at least 5 of the screens that I'm going to select. So I've reset things, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add all of the stock screens that are in the program. Next thing I'm going to do then is go to the crosstab. And so we've loaded 53 stock screens what I want to see, are there any companies that pass at least 5? I'm going to just generate a report. We're going to do this. Let's do this. Cross by issue. So again, it's going to be the tickers across the top, the stock screens on the vertical. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and chew on it for a few moments. So what this report then generates are all of the companies that pass at least 5 of the predefined screens in Stock Investor. So we have right at the top, Lululemon Athletica, maker of athletic apparel. And so with this report then, it'll show you the ticker, and it will show you all of the stock screens that that particular ticker passes. So we can see here that Lululemon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 passes 8 of the stock screens that we selected from that list. So again, this is another useful, not sure if there's any research out there that shows that the more companies, the more screens a particular company passes, the quote unquote better investment that it is. But I know there's a lot of people, this is actually we have a version of this on our website at the stock screens area, and I know this is a very popular feature that people use that they use. So this is another functionality that kind of sets Stock Investor apart from a lot of the different services that are out there. So at this point, I am past my allotted time. I think I've touched on pretty much everything that I really wanted to give you. Again, the whole purpose of this presentation was to give you a very high level overview of the software. The one thing though that I do want to show you very quickly is.
Oh, hey, Wayne, we had a quick
Yes.
question about the multi-screen mode, and I just wanted to ask you before we moved on real quick.
Sure.
So are the screens applied in the order listed in the multi-screen mode?
Let me see here. So I'm trying to. For the multi-screener, yes, that is a great question. That is, so there is an order of operation when it comes to the multi-screen selector. So yes, so if you start right off the bat, so let's delete all this. Let's start over. So we're going to delete all. So yes, so if you started off, let's go back to, we know, oops. Let's go back to our O'Neill screen because we knew that no companies passed the O'Neill screen. And then let's find, let's see, the ADR screen normally has a lot of, not as many as it used to. Let's just do estimate revisions up. So, yes. So, right off the bat, this would have timed out at 0 immediately. Actually, it tells you where it times out. So in this case, since the O'Neill screen had 0 passing companies, as this message shows you, since the first screen it was evaluating, it tells you where it times out. In this case, is the O'Neill screen, and that was our first one. So yes, if the very first screen you select has no passing companies, then you're going to get this message immediately. So yes, excellent question.
Thanks, Wayne.
No, thank you. So one last thing just to show you very quickly is, oh, maybe not. Best laid plans. Oh, maybe not. No, I apologize. So just to reiterate though, as far as the data update frequency for Stock Investor Pro, the data is updated daily. Our data process runs overnight after every trading day. So assuming that it's a normal trading week, new data becomes available Monday night through Friday night. Now, for example, yesterday was a market holiday, so there was no new data posted yesterday. Otherwise, the data is updated daily. So I'm just trying to think real quick here. I knew I was going to run out of time. I mean, as far as resources go, if you go to the Stock Investor Pro area of AAII.com, so you have a number of resources. This is where you would actually come to download the program. This is where we have our archive of past updates. I do know there's frustration amongst current users. When we switched from LSAG to S&P Global at the beginning of October, in order for us to satisfy the termination terms of our LSEG contract, we had to remove our archive of past data updates. Tried to negotiate with them to no avail. So unfortunately, for those of you that have used the program in the past and made use of our archive of updates, now we only have updates dating back to October 1st moving forward. But this is where you can access historical daily installations of the program. This is where you can also find videos. So these are some of the resources that I alluded to earlier. They'll walk you through, oh, I'm sorry, these are actually webinars, video tutorials, that's what we want. So created a pretty extensive archive of videos that'll walk you through and discuss some of the key features of the program, as well as our archive of stock investor news. Don't get turned off by the dates. The data, the information, the philosophy, the methodology itself is evergreen. But walk you through how to use the screen editor, how to use common size financial statement data in the program, etc. So you have a very extensive collection of user resources to help you learn how to use the program as well. So again, a lot of information. I went long, which actually is the first time in a while that I've done that, but I was afraid this was going to happen. But hopefully it is giving you some insights into Stock Investor Pro. If you're a current user, maybe I touched on something that you weren't aware of in the software, maybe boosted the value of your subscription. Or if you were coming to learn about the program, hopefully you walk away thinking that that might be a program that'll be useful as you are trying to identify stock screening, stock investment opportunities. So with that, I want to thank everyone for attending today. And I am still able and willing to take questions as well. So Jenna, do we have any questions?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for showing the slide with the offer. I also put it in the chat so people can easily copy and paste the URL. And then like you mentioned as well, it is located in the PDF handout. But yes, we got a lot of questions. So I'll try to get to as many as we can. And then obviously I mentioned in the very beginning that people are able to directly email you at wayne@aaii.com for any specific Stock Investor Pro questions, functionality, data sources, screening, and then also any membership questions, please email members@aaii.com. And our member services team is happy to answer any kinds of billing, membership, renewal questions that you may have. But first off, okay, so let's see, I'm going down the list. Okay, so I got this question a couple different iterations, so I wanted to ask first and foremost, when you first subscribe, there's a lot of people who are really interested in the in Stock Investor Pro, and either A, are very long time past users who only use it a little bit and want to get back into it, or people who haven't used it yet. What is your suggestion on your first few days of using the program? Do you, initially, start off right off the bat with, a pre-built screen, create your own to find new opportunities? What would your suggestion be?
I mean, I would probably might to sort of put it back on the individual user is how do you intend to use the program? If you want to use it as a research database, or do you want to use it for a stock screener? Depending on how you want to be using it, I would strongly suggest going back to the Stock Investor Pro area of AAII.com and going to the videos and look at it. So if you're interested in custom screening, we have a multitude of videos talking about how you can go about building your own stock screens. If you're interested more from a research database program standpoint, there's numerous videos that show you how to analyze and interpret the data in the program. So really, it comes down to how you want to use it and then make use of the resources available that key in on those specific ways in which you want to use the program.
That makes sense. And we have two kind of primary sets of tools. A lot of our premium products have tools within them, but we have two, primary. We have Stock Investor Pro, and then we also have A Plus Investor. So, what is, I guess, a couple of questions. A couple of members asked, how do those two differ? Is one better than the other for certain types of investors, or is it something that you kind of use different tools for each one in your stock research kind of journey?
A plus is really an all-encompassing online investment discovery, analysis, and tracking tool. So there you get mutual fund, ETF screening. You get our predefined stock screens. There's an online stock screener that is nowhere near as powerful as what you get with Stock Investor Pro. But then it's also, you can do evaluation, so you can pull up fund and stock evaluators where you can pull selected stock or fund data. So if you are a fund and ETF investor, Stock Investor Pro is not going to do anything for you. If you're a stock investor, then it comes down to what you're looking to do. If you're looking for data specific to a stock, sort of raw data, you're going to get exponentially more data through Stock Investor Pro. A plus kind of massages the data a little bit more. You get our stock grades, which you don't get access to with Stock Investor Pro. But then the depth of data itself is not as deep as you get with Stock Investor. So if I would say, probably, to be brutally honest, you probably want to start with A plus, and then if you're found wanting, you might want to then look into Stock Investor Pro.
That makes sense. And a couple questions. So I wanted to kind of address, because you mentioned at the very end, but that we had recently transitioned from data providers. So what was the main reason, and how does that impact people who already have Stock Investor Pro?
Doesn't impact. There's zero impact to the end user. Obviously the data itself has changed, but it's like we did not discover significant changes in derived data, so ratios, multiples, growth rates, etc., because it's applying the same standard of normalization across all companies. So it's the same type of adjustments that are being made. So I mean, it's ultimately just understanding what the data is. We've gone from an as reported, so you can pull up a 10K or 10Q. You could previously pull up a 10K or 10Q report for Apple and basically see, okay, this is what its revenue value was for this point in time. Revenue probably isn't going to be adjusted a lot, but once you start looking down into especially expense items, etc., you might start seeing some significant differences versus what's in the as reported data. So it's understanding that. The biggest thing to understand is if you're trying to find where that number came from, since it's a proprietary standardization that's being performed by S&P, it's more difficult to say where does that number come from. But actually, I find that by removing sort of the objectivity that a lot of companies, subjectivity, I'm sorry, that a lot of companies can use when they're reporting their data, it removes that. So I think that from my own personal standpoint, I think it makes the data easier to compare across companies.
That makes sense. And we had quite a few questions about back testing. So can you just kind of explain a little bit of can you do back testing of a selected screen in a Stock Investor Pro? Also, if you can, how do you do so?
Short answer is no, you can't back test. When we had our old archive of installations, you could do a form of back testing that, to be brutally honest, was somewhat kludgy and time consuming. But now that we only have a database going back to the beginning of October, testing a strategy over 4 months is not meaningful. So the short answer is with Stock Investor Pro, that was never backtesting was never really a functionality that was promoted for the program. That's not was as intended. It's not a backtesting engine. Just having access to those historical installations allow you to run a screen several years ago and see the companies that pass and how they perform going forward. But Stock Investor was never intended to be a backtesting engine. It is a stock screening engine. And with the change in the data providers and our lack now of archive, there's really not much you can do from that standpoint.
Okay, that's good to know. And so we have I could see that a lot of members either they may not have Stock Investor Pro yet, but they have DI or they have A plus or growth investing. So one of the other products that we offer. So a couple questions we got were, are AI stock grades or G scores available as predefined viewing or screening elements in Stock Investor Pro?
They are not. The G score, which is unique to growth investing, is only at this point with the growth investing service. The stock grades are unique and exclusive to A plus investor. The dividend grades are exclusive to dividend investing. Right now, we're considering, do we to sort of provide all of these in a single spot? Do we put them in stock investor or do we put them in A plus? We're still trying to come up with that decision, but those data points are definitely not in stock investor at this time.
It's good to know. And let's see, lots of questions. I really appreciate everybody submitting everything. It's been fantastic to just kind of go through all the different excellent questions. Let's see. Oh, one of the questions I saw that pop up a couple times was, this is on I would say a personal level, but how often do you recommend or do you kind of advise that investors update or adjust their stock screening criteria? Is it kind of on an annual basis? Is it something that that's very personal and you have to kind of take into account your own investor preferences and things? But how often do you adjust your screening criteria?
I mean, hardly ever. There's always the temptation to tweak. If you find a strategy that works, you have to be willing to ride it out. If you try to optimize it, then you're always going to be tweaking it, and your long-term performance probably will suffer for it. You just have to understand that no strategy will outperform the market across the entire business and economic cycle. So if you find a strategy that works for you and has worked for you for a long time, don't be surprised if it goes through a period of underperformance. That's why we diversify. So, you can diversify across sectors and industries, but you can also diversify across stock selection strategies. I rarely, I've overseen, several portfolios here at the association over time. Very rarely do we adjust, at least the selection criteria. If anything gets tweaked, it's more so on the sales/deletion side of things. But no, it's I would not. You might want to rebalance a portfolio every once in a while, but I would not. I personally would not be looking for an annual reevaluation of the criteria I use for a particular screen. Now, obviously, if it continuously underperforms for a long period of time, then maybe just look for a new strategy in general. But I don't think that you should be looking to be frequently adjusting the criteria of an individual screen.
That's good.
That
makes sense. Let's see. We got a lot of nitty gritty questions. So I'll take a couple of them, but anything that's very specific, please, like we mentioned before, please email, Wayne at AAII.com. But a couple of things is, so let's see. Is the historical data adjusted for splits?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Excellent. And then we got a couple of questions that we're talking about earnings estimates and forecasts. What is the source of those, or where do those come from?
All of the data in Stock Investor comes from S&P Global Market Intelligence.
Okay. Great. And then let's see. is there the ability to make a screen that shows companies that have beat earnings the most over a certain period of time, or is that possible with Stock Investor Pro?
You have earnings surprise data for the last two quarterly reporting periods. So you could find companies that have surpassed the consensus estimate for the last two fiscal quarters. We don't have a prolonged history of surprise data in the program.
Okay, that makes sense. And let's see. Can you select more than one ticker to work with?
Yes,
Okay.
via a portfolio.
Okay.
So you can create a portfolio of several tickers, and that's one aspect I didn't get into. But with the portfolio editor, you can manually enter in tickers,
Hmm.
or you can run a screen. Let's say we ran our NEF screen. I think 23 companies passed or something like that. In the program, you could save those 23 companies as a portfolio.
Hmm.
So yes, you have the ability to manage a quote unquote portfolio, but a portfolio is just a collection of tickers.
Hmm.
There's no portfolio tracking, performance tracking, anything like that. A portfolio is just a list of tickers that then you can run screens against, print
Hmm.
reports on, etc.
Okay, that makes sense. And I know you've mentioned the NEF screen as being one of your favorite, but I think so. We had a couple questions that came in that was asking, is there a particular, book by John Neff that Wayne recommends to read, or any kind of
John Neff on
materials?
investing. I think it's John Neff on investing, one of the best. Personally, I think one of the best investment texts ever written. Very straightforward. Um, he was a very unassuming individual, also a lifelong Detroit Tigers fan, which always endears anyone to myself. But just very well written, very plain spoken, not a lot of jargon, but just really gets to the heart of a strategy that has performed well for us. It's the actually Group 4 screen in our SSR portfolio. It's done
Mhm.
extraordinarily well in that portfolio, but it's just a very simple, straightforward stock screen. It's not a lot of smoke and mirrors or just unreasonable math or concepts. When you just look at it, it's like, wow, this makes a lot of sense and it works.
Mhm. That's fantastic. And okay, we are running out of time. So like I said, feel free to email any other questions that we might have missed. There was many to choose from. I really appreciate everybody for submitting those. But the one question I'm going to land or end on is we got a couple people who mentioned, actually we had a variety of people. We had a variety of people who commented that they had a floppy disk of Stock Investor Pro, or that they had been following for 10 plus years. So that was fantastic to hear. A lot of kudos to Wayne, and thanks, for putting so much effort and time into, putting together video tutorials and webinars and showing all the analysis that's possible with Stock Investor Pro. So I wanted to share that with Wayne. But my
Thank you. That
question
was
for
very
you
generous.
is, when SI Pro was first created, what was the primary purpose of what it wanted to solve for investors? What was the kind of the passion behind creating such a product for those individual investors?
I mean, I think the whole notion of stock screening, I think, is kind of timeless. It's the time saving element, but I think even more importantly, it's trying to remove emotion from the stock selection process. You have a finite set of filters that you run, and whatever companies pass, if you truly believe in the strategy, those are the companies that you focus on. So it removes that emotion, that removes kind of a one-off type of analysis. Is you find a strategy that you like, that it meets your time horizon, risk tolerances, etc. You run it. You have your list of passing companies, and that is kind of where your analysis. That's where your analysis begins, but it also sets an endpoint because it's just those companies that you're going to be analyzing. So I think that's very few things at the association are before my time, but Stock Investor is one of them. But I have to believe that was probably the cornerstone, was being able to very quickly identify companies that meet a base set of criteria, uh, and and then remove the emotional aspect of stock selection.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's what AII is all about, is really, kind of removing those biases and things that, tempt people to make irrational decisions or decisions not, based on data and everything. But before we move into our conclusion, where I'll reiterate again our special discount and that we're offering attendees, do you have any final thoughts or any comments you want to leave the audience with, Wayne?
No, as I said, Stock Investor is a very powerful program, but I think as the questions attested to, we have a number of subscribers that have used the program for many years, and so I think that's evident that of the power that the program provides. And if you're a do-it-yourself investor that is looking to perform fundamental-based stock screening, really, I don't think there's a more powerful program out there, especially for the value that it provides.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And okay, well, first of all, I want to say, thank you so much, Wayne, for really guiding us through, the stock
My
screening
pleasure.
process and using Stock Investor Pro. That was a fantastic presentation, and I know people will definitely want to download it. So we have that PDF, available to those. And then, like Wayne mentioned, I put in the chat a couple times, but you can look at the video tutorials, see our past webinars on Stock Investor Pro for even more information about how to, use it effectively. Especially, in your stock screening and analysis, journey. But if you have any questions about how to use Stock Investor Pro, downloading the software or how to use it, screening capabilities, all that good stuff, feel free to email Wayne at AAII.com. But then anything that's membership related, renewals, pricing, accounting, other questions, feel free to message us at members@AAII.com, or you can call us at 312-676-4307, and that's Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. And then our special promo today, like Wayne mentioned, allows attendees to get a 1-year subscription to Stock Investor Pro just for visiting invest.aaii.com/SIPro-flash-sale. I know it's a long one, so we've included in the PDF. It'll be in the email, and it's also in the chat right now. And then this limited time new subscriber discount on a 1-year subscription to Stock Investor Pro is exclusive to webinar attendees and is only valid until February 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. And then just a note, you must use the website URL provided to receive your discounted rate. And then lastly, this presentation was recorded and a replay will be available at AAII.com/webinars early next week. I put that also in the chat, so AAII.com/webinars. And then webinar attendees will also receive an email with the link in the next few days. They'll also receive a copy of Wayne's presentation slides, as well as any other helpful links to resources that we discussed today. And that will all be in that helpful handy dandy email. But with that, we wish all of you viewing good health, good fortune, and a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, and take care.